Hello and welcome to the Cogito Design channel. If you're new to this series, this is where I interview designers to help share advice and inspiration on how to build your own tabletop game. This episode, I've been lucky enough to interview the designer of one of my all-time favourite games, Inish. That's right, it's the amazingly talented Christian Martinez. The likes of Inish and the tactical tribal duel game Cairn are just a few of Christian's awesome creations. Not only this, he teaches students how to design their own games, helping to shape the future of this fantastic industry. And if you haven't seen already, Christian designed the epic Galactic Renaissance game, which is live on Kickstarter right now. It was funded in just 3 hours and looks really impressive. I highly recommend checking it out, so I've linked it in the description below. So for you Christian Martinez fans out there, this video contains some great advice and genius wisdom. So let's get started.
Most often than not, I start with theme because it feels natural to me. And I must say that I like a good or clever mechanism. I think I'm really sensitive to the theme of a game. I don't think I can enjoy a game with a theme that I wouldn't like, although there are exceptions. The first time I was invited to play a game of Flamme Rouge. Yeah, great game. Come on, let's play a game of Flamme Rouge. It's a game about bicycle race. What? No, I don't want to play a game about bicycle race. But I played it nonetheless. And guess what? It was great. It's just a great game with a very good integration of theme and mechanisms, and with a very simple mechanism. So I enjoyed the game for his mechanism, but also because it works very well with the chosen subject. Back to the question, actually it depends. Most of the time it's theme. For example, Inish became with theme first, with the subject of Celts and ancient Celts and Celtic mythology. And I struggled to find a mechanism that I really liked and that would, in my heart, in my opinion, reflect what I wanted for a game about ancient Celts. But there are exceptions, of course, and in one of my recent games, which is Cairn, it's a game that I've been designing mechanisms first. Actually, it was like a challenge for me. I wanted to design some kind of abstract, compact game. And after a while, when the game worked, I searched for a theme or at least a subject that would fit it, and it's more an aesthetical theme than a real theme. Okay, there's no theme in it. It's just the aesthetics are influenced by the theme or the subject. Another thing I'd like to address in this question is we all know the expression pasted on theme, like someone came with a mechanism and then after a while pastes a theme on it. Supposedly this expression means, I think, that there's not a good integration of theme and mechanism. But to me, in fact, it doesn't matter which one came first, as long as there's a smooth and good integration of theme and mechanisms. Take a game, for instance, Imperial Assault. This is a game that has factually a pasted-on theme. It was the mechanism of Doom, then of Descent, then Imperial Assault. And yet the game feels really thematic and fun, and it works on a thematic level. So, yeah, I don't like this expression. I'm not sure it means something useful for thinking about games and game design. For me, there's not just theme in a game. Obviously there are mechanisms, etc. But when you talk about theme, there's not just theme. In the movie industry or literature, when we talk about theme, we talk actually about ideas, what the movie or the books says or wants to say. When we talk about theme in a game, we talk about setting, background, and sometimes subject. But I prefer to view theme as a whole, as a three-component concept, which would include the setting, the background, the subject, what's the story, and themes or, purpose, premises of what is it about? What are the ideas that you want to convey as the designer, the author? And that's very close. It's almost the same idea that is developed by recently read a book which realizes this on this very idea, although he names the things a bit differently, and that is Unboxed by Gordon Calleja. And great book for game design, and he talks about the experience of gaming, and he approaches the theme in the same way, with the three-part concept, and he calls the third part the fiction, which I find is a very good term. So this connection really matters to me, and even when I work on mechanisms which look abstract, I always try to find a thematic connection, or else if it doesn't work for me, it doesn't work. For instance, I take some mechanisms as simple and innocuous as in Inish, for instance. Every season you toss a coin to determine in which direction the game will play. I've connected that to the practice of watching the birds and the crows flying, and depending on the way they fly, it would be a good or a bad omen, and I find interesting to connect the mechanisms in this way too, because it's not what you do, but it's evocative, I think. In Inish, the discard pile is face down, and you don't have the right to inspect it. There are gameplay reasons for this, because when you decide to discard a card in a clash, you do it face down, and nobody knows what you have discarded. But there's a thematic reason for this too. Celtic culture was an oral culture. No written things, well, almost names and that, but no story, no written stories. And the Druids have had this huge oral tradition in the head. So I said, yeah, why not? You're a Celt, you don't have oral, you don't take notes, you must remember what is in the discard pile. So it's not thematic in a way that it represents something on a one-to-one basis, but for me it's evocative, and I find this kind of link interesting. Also, there's another thing. When I think about abstract level of a game, I try not to think in direct opposition of thematic. We are used to consider thematic and abstractness on a linear line. Abstract on one end and thematic on the other end. I prefer to see that as a two-dimensional grid with thematic relevance here and level of abstraction here. Because when I think about games this way, and especially for my designs, but even for analysis of existing games, it allows me to think in a more expanded way. That means that I can have a high level of abstraction, but with thematic relevance. I can try to imagine one, and there are some that exist. But if I think about it on a line, I can't imagine that kind of thing. So for me, it's a way of trying to think about your designs and about what exists on a more expanded way, and that can give you ideas. Lots of them. One mechanism I really like and I haven't used yet, or I've tried to use it, but it didn't quite work, so I had to ditch it, is the time track. I really like this mechanism, which you can find, for instance, in this great game by Matthias Kramer, Glenmore, great game, great use of the time track mechanism. The player who takes his turn is the last player on the track, and he goes as far as he wants, but there's a catch. He won't play soon if he goes too far. Great mechanism, great self-balancing mechanism, and one I'd like to use, I think, maybe. Also, it's not really a mechanism per se, but a family of mechanisms. I'd like to incorporate a certain level of role-playing in a game, and I try to. I'd really like to make it work. I got a few prototypes which use this integration of role-playing in a board game or a card game, and by that I don't mean just role-play what happens. You can do that with any game, I think, but you role-play some things. It's not a pure role-play game. You role-play things, and the role-playing informs the gameplay. Also, deck building, for instance. I really like deck building games, and I've used in a way in a game like Galactic Renaissance, for instance, or a new game I'm working on, Rise Against the Machine. There's a slight deck building aspect, but I really like, classic deck building games, or more elaborate ones like Dune or Midnight, for instance. On this subject matter, I must say I'm a bit old school. What I mean by that is I don't mind a bit of negative interaction, or take that. Back in the days, there were games with lots of take that. But I think it's still nonetheless important to consider this point, especially as the public and the players have grown out of this take that approach. Today, and since a few years, games are supposed to be more inclusive, easy to set up and play with anyone. And so, I think it's a pertinent consideration. But I can't help to think that the level of interaction, positive, neutral, negative, it's in the hands of the players, but the game should allow to play in a certain way. And I try, even with what I say, I try to come with some kind of positive interaction in my games. And the first example I remember playing, when I say, whoa, that's clever, this approach of interaction, was in Lords of Waterdeep. This game, worker placement in D&D, I love this game. And they use a lot positive interaction. That's interesting, because it could have been full of negative interaction, and we would have said, okay, it's a D&D game, come on, be mean and be bold. But it came up with lots of intrigue cards, full of positive interaction. You gain this and someone else gain this. You choose who. And it works. It really works, because it's, in a way, it fulfills the same function as negative interaction. Because if you evaluate the positions of the players in the game, if you think about it, with negative interaction, I will do something that won't get me anything, and I will push a player back in the game position. With positive interaction, I push someone up, and supposedly I push me up too. And I find this interesting. I try to use this kind of interaction. I've used it recently on a game I'm designing. It's called Mission Chevalier. Not a very good name. It's a working name, okay? Please. And first there was a certain amount of negative interaction in this game, and then I decided to turn the things around, and it works. I must admit that the mood at the table, and then what happens between the players, I think it's impacted in a way by the kind of interaction you place in your game. I wish I had. Balancing is always difficult and time-consuming in a game, I think, for me. What I could say is you gotta make a lot of play tasting and approach it as an iterative process. You test, you play test, then you analyze, then upgrade, play test, analyze, upgrade, etc. And it's not the easiest of the tasks in game design, I think. But there are a few design tricks that are useful here. For instance, there are mechanisms that are self-balancing or that allow for some self-balance in the game. For instance, take an auction, for instance. Auction is an interesting mechanism because it's self-balancing. It supposes that the players know what they do and can evaluate assets in the game, but that's the point. And it's a good self-balancing mechanism. So you can have a pool of objects which are not necessarily balanced or finely balanced, but the auction takes charge of this. Another self-balancing mechanism that I like a lot, and I use it a lot. Well, small parenthesis. I design games to be published, board games, card games for fun, but my job is also to design games for companies, for learning. So I design lots of small games, card games, board games for learning, for companies. End of parenthesis. And so this mechanism I like a lot is the river mechanism, like in Small World. I love it. Small World, when you buy your people power and you want to buy one, you must pay for how far it is in the queue. That's great. It works really well. And it's a self-balancing mechanism because you can have different levels, different powers, different powers of effectiveness in the peoples, and it works. Great mechanism. Also, I talked about the time track. I think it's a good self-balancing mechanism too, because if something is far away, you will take it only if it's has a big value for you. So yeah, it works. Glenmore is great for that. Well, I guess it's a surprise for no one who does this activity. Always several at a time. I can't just focus on one. Although, yeah, in a period of time, I know I must or I do focus on one or two or three designs. But I like to jump around and then work on this and then on that and dust out some old idea or half-finished project and work a bit on it. And I need to change my mind this way once in a while. But obviously, I sometimes have to work on one design for a certain period of time. I give game design courses in a school in Lyon, where I live. And, well, first it's do something. You have an idea, make something out of it. You have 10 ideas, take one and make something out of it. It will work or it will not work, it doesn't matter. Do something. You will learn something anyway if you do something. And I think what I say the most is stay aware. Play lots of things, but do not restrict yourself and your inspiration to games. Read a lot of books, fiction, history book, art books, scientific books, anything, what you like. Go see art exposition, go see movies, obviously, watch series, movies, and I don't know, I have the feeling that it's pretty natural for game designers to be in that state of awareness of wanting to discover lots of things, and that's good. And my advice for young game designers with which I interact is largely based upon this. Yeah, stay aware and don't restrict yourself to games. Other advices would be playtest a lot. Keep it simple. If you're in the reflection about one element of gameplay and you say, okay, I could do like this or I could do like that, I always ask myself if both are okay, efficient, and they work, which one is the simpler, and I go for it. If it works, okay, And if it doesn't, well, think about it again, but keep it simple. Another question is, what do you really want to achieve with your game in terms of play experience? What do you really want game experience to be like? Do you want the players to think about something, to think in a way, in a certain way, to play in a certain setting, or maybe to play with a certain kind of relation of interactions? What is your deep motivation with your game? And it helps inform lots of questions you may have along the design process. So yeah, the Kickstarter campaign is on. The game is funded, so that's great. I'm really, it's fantastic. I'm really happy. And so one of the first questions I had, and rightly so, is it Inish in space? Well, in a way it is, but it's not. What I mean, it's not a reskin. I haven't just changed the names, the graphics, it's really another game, but it's connected. When I first worked on Galactic Renaissance, it was, I had Inish in my mind, of course. I wanted to go further with Inish, or in other directions. At the same time, which may be paradox, try to please the people who like Inish, and at the same time address some of the issues that people who don't like Inish may have. That was my first train of thoughts about Galactic Renaissance. But then it quickly went in a direction of, okay, I want to design this game is in this science fiction setting, which is a setting derived from the Foundation by Isaac Asimov. So setting has changed, subject has changed, core mechanism has changed. Where there was a draft, there's a kind of deck building. You have your own deck that you can boost with specialist cards, which boost your deck but don't bog it down. But there are lots of ideas that stay the same on a gameplay and on a experience level, thematic experience level. For instance, in Galactic Renaissance, the equivalent of clashes in Inish are called disorders. When there are too many people, things on a planet, you have to get back to equilibrium, and to do this, everybody must do something. Maybe remove one emissary or move. It's supposed Galactic Renaissance is supposedly a peaceful game, supposedly because the theme is of politicians trying to accomplish objectives for the Senate, the Federation. But there is only one winner in the end. It's supposedly peaceful, but things are what they are when there's only one winner in the end. This specific part of the game experience and this specific mechanism is reminiscent of Inish, but it doesn't convey the same feeling, the same experience. You get to think, to integrate it in a different way in your game. Although it shares for me the characteristics of what it means to be in a kind of clash or disorder, what it means and what can I do and what can others do and what tricks do I have up my sleeves, because I can have some in both games. So it's not the same, but there are ideas that are on the same subjects, and some experiences in both games are related. So yeah, I suppose I tried to design it that it could be a game for Inish fans or not. I think that some people that dislike some things in Inish may like Galactic Renaissance, because you can find some things which are similar. But if you don't like the tension of the draft, well, it's not here. I'll let you discover that. I would say on a mechanical experience level, that Inish, for me, Inish is a game of card advantage, whereas Galactic Renaissance is a game of tempo. It's a game where you have to be in the flow, really add what's useful for your deck and try to pack it in a certain way and deliver it in efficient ways. Yeah, this feeling of snowballing deck is really there, and the game can accelerate and finish in an explosion. Yeah, yes, I hope so. No, but one that it's not in the near future, it's a near past. It's the last game I designed, which has been released, published. It's this one, Utopia. It's a game which is published only in France at the moment. It's a cooperative game to build a better city. Your city is on the brink of pollution, traffic jams, etc. And with other players, you gotta build a better city, considering mobility, environment, etc. Because there's a challenge in the form of crisis, which can be environmental, but not only. And well, it's a familiar game. It's not really a gamer's game, but you can adjust the difficulty level. So there it is. I have worked with the same friends because we were three to make this game with my friends Catherine and Jean-François. With the same friends, we've made two other games on which we are working at the moment. One is Rise Against the Machine, and the other one is Blockbuster. It's a game about movies, and I hope you will hear about them soon. Thank you again. Thank you for listening all my rants until now. Thank you, Cogito. Thank you, Maddie. Bye.
Thank you so much, Christian, for taking the time to answer my interview questions, especially during this very busy yet exciting time. I certainly learned a lot, so thank you so much. I wish you lots of luck with the Galactic Renaissance Kickstarter. We've backed it and already can't wait to get our hands on a copy. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure to head to the link in the description below. And if you found this video useful, please like and subscribe to show your support. And as always, thank you so much to our loyal patrons who help us bring you these videos. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.